I'm the cat.
And welcome to the Rugby Bits podcast. And we've got another special episode of our Rugby Bits and Pieces series for in preparation for the Rugby World Cup final against the All Blacks. And we've brought in the host of the Distracted Sports podcast and the host with Two Cents Rugby of the Two Cents Gets Distracted podcast series, Tony O'Sullivan, with us today. Tony, we thanks for joining us. First of all, good evening to you in New Zealand this morning on our side.
Kia ora, Morena. You guys must be really scraping the bottom of the barrel that you had to get me on, but I really do appreciate it. It's finally great to be on a high quality podcast. I've been slumming it with Mark from Two Cents for so long, so this is a big moment for me. Thanks, guys.
Look, we're trying to interview all 3 million New Zealanders basically by the end of the week. So this is us going through the
Fantastic.
census at the moment.
Brilliant, brilliant. Make sure you get the sheep as well. They've got an opinion as well. We'd like to get them covered.
No, we'll definitely do so. So, Tony, just maybe let's start with how you feelings around in New Zealand as well about this bit matchup happening. Are you happy it's the Springboks? Would you rather it's not the Springboks? How people are feeling about the game. Obviously, there's been a lot of like it's been up and down with the in the Ian Foster era.
Mm.
So I'm sure people are like thinking maybe that the World Cup maybe wouldn't be a possibility of winning it, and now maybe some people are bought in. How's it going?
Personally, I'm a bit of a narcissist, so I just take on board what I'm feeling. But I'm wrecked with anxiety. I really am. Like it's a very nerve jangling week leading into a grand final, into the final of the Rugby World Cup. It's the most important game in 4 years, and it's against our biggest foe. So, in terms of an event, in terms of the level of excitement, the level of nerves, it really doesn't get much bigger than this. It doesn't get any bigger than this, and I think that's the same for both countries. I think in terms of the mood of the nation, we were going into this whole World Cup incredibly pessimistically. Like this is, we had the worst 4 year run that we've ever had in any period, but especially over the modern history. So we really didn't expect too much. I think there was a lot of negativity going into it, but it's just been so amazing to see this team grow and grow and grow after that first loss with France. So there's a level of optimism there. We've been encouraged by how they've been playing. They've had some terrific results. I think a lot of people, when that Italy result happened, a lot of people were saying, oh, let's see if Italy can actually knock them off. And then they put 96 points on them. And everyone was like, oh, well, it's only Italy, fine. And then everyone kind of wrote us off for Ireland. And then we put in a fantastic All Black performance with, a really, really sound game plan. We played intelligent. And then we just, that was by far and away the biggest game that we have so far. And then last week, in comparison to what you guys went through, we just had an easy ride to the final. It was just a relaxing experience playing Argentina while you guys had pretty much an existential crisis as you were going through that game. So how are you guys feeling after, that game with England? Because I was in during that game, I was thinking, I started analyzing how are we going to take on England? 15 minutes to go. I had you guys, out the door, but just such an incredible comeback. And it really goes to show how incredible the Springbok team is in terms of their will. They've got fantastic players, great tactics, but I've always thought that the greatest quality that the South African team has, the Springboks, is that will and desire and that ability to never quit. They've got no quit in them. Like any other team in world rugby loses that game with 15 minutes to go. The only team, that's including the All Blacks, that wins that is the Springboks. And it was quite a sight to behold. And, and it really just has created like one of the biggest games of our lifetime. And, I couldn't be more excited, but couldn't be more nervous at the same time.
Shaun, do you want to take how we were feeling as Springbok fans?
Oh, I get, I like get cold sweats thinking about it. As you started mentioning it, Tony, I was starting to shit myself. Yeah. So for me, I essentially spent the whole game feeling how you felt, like the Springboks were going to lose, and it went through. Until the next morning, I woke up and I'm like, we out of the World Cup. But then I knew that we were in the World Cup final. Like that's what an absolute shit show it was, and what the Springboks England game put us all through. So it was wild. But yeah, I still don't know how we did it. And it's through what you've said. It was just pure will, pure just knowing the process. As you know, Makazula Mapimpi's back in South Africa, obviously due to his injury, but he was watching it with someone on Twitter. I can't remember.
Like at a fan park, basically.
Yeah, I was at a fan park and he was watching, and they said that he just kept saying, "Don't worry, they've got this. Don't worry, they can do this. Wow. They will do it. They will get back in." And that's the kind of belief that the Springboks have. And there's only very few teams in the world that have had that. The All Blacks are one. Like there was a stage where if you were leading the All Blacks by 10 points and there was 5 minutes to go, inside you knew you were going to lose the game. And Ireland have done that for the last
10.
Yeah, and you know, Ireland have had that for the last 3-4 years as well. But we're starting to have it, and that's scary because you can't coach a team to deal with that. Like the only way you coach a team to deal with that is if they have the same belief and they are as stubborn. Like you can't, like once that element of doubt creeps into your mind, and the Springboks are coming at you, or the All Blacks are coming at you, you just know you're in shit.
That's right. That's right. It kind of reminds me, I've been thinking about this a lot this week. I had a coaching clinic when I was about 15, 16 years old with Ian Jones. Do you guys remember who Ian Jones was?
Yeah.
An All Black lock. So we was coaching a group of us at my school, and we went away on a camp, and he came along for a couple of days, and we did a bit of a Q&A with him, and we said, "Who's your favorite team to play?" And he said, "Well, it's kind of two parts to that question. My favorite team to beat is Australia." This was the late 90s, and they were a very, very strong team. But he said the hardest team to play is the Springboks, because whatever is happening in the game, no matter what the score is, it's always hurting. It's always painful. And for the full 80, they make you hurt. They put you in uncomfortable positions, and they just do not stop. What is it about the Springbok jersey that just, brings that belief through and has for so many years? Like, there are these great South African teams that have come through, and like this is why we have so much respect for them, because we think of ourselves as kind of an unstoppable force, but you guys are the very definition of an immovable object, which is kind of made, it's kind of the recipe for why this is the greatest rivalry in rugby.
Yeah, no, I think you've got it completely right. And it does seem like this team has gone sort of above and beyond with that self-belief, that they just really feel like they believe in this plan that Rassie and Jacques Nienaber have. They believe in each other. They believe in, how the way that they play, and they believe that any situation they face, they can win, which has basically got them out the last 2 weeks. And it'll be interesting to see because, as much as they can do that against, obviously they've done it against at least one very good team in the French and England. I'm still a bit skeptical if we maybe made them look a lot better than they were. But with the All Blacks, there isn't really any opportunity to fake it, if you can call it that. Like, both teams know each other so well, and both teams have so much history, of course. And I mean, the majority of the players, both 23s, I'll probably play on Saturday, have faced each other over years and years in the Rugby Championship and in Super Rugby. Right. So yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup. And I think there is not a mental block, but there's a two-sided coin with facing the All Blacks for the Springboks. Like, the Springboks will give their biggest effort of the year against New Zealand, but they also know how dangerous New Zealand is. And I think that was that other side of the coin was happening the last few years with, not the best New Zealand teams that we've seen in the last 2-3 years of the Foster era, and we've not really managed to put them away when we've had the chance. So it's now interesting to see that, they're back in full confidence. It's for all the marbles, and we'll see how they go about things now. But Tony, I think let's go into maybe, we're recording this on the Wednesday. We haven't heard what the teams are. But yeah, let's hear what you think about what possible selections may be for the All Blacks. We saw that they basically went with more or less similar 23s in the quarterfinal and the semi-final. They rotated in and out Dane Coles and Samsoni Takiaho at 16. They've rotated Sam Whitelock and Brodie Retallick, maybe just trying to manage the two old war horses.
That's right.
How do you think there'll be any changes to the semi-final 23? Do you think maybe Dan Coles comes back? Do you think they'll be changing the props? I would assume Brody Retallick starts and maybe a Whitelock goes to the bench. Yeah, how do you see the 23
Yeah.
shaping up?
Well, it's a pretty settled 23 for the most part. And I think the only like change in the 23 will be the returning of Dan Coles on the bench. We're starting with Cody Taylor. I think Samasoni will drop out of the 23. And yeah, other than that, it's just, as you said, the old war horses will just change places. I think they quite like bringing big old Sam Whitelock on, with a bit of experience, a bit of a cool head for those last 20 minutes, just to, calm things down, put in a bit of grunt, do those big line out calls when the game's really on the line, win the big moments for us if possible. And yeah, Scooter will play the full 80, old dog roll Barrett, as long as he hasn't been red carded or something. So as long as he hasn't had a brain fart. But other than that, I think the back line is really settled. I know there was a little bit of, Talia was on the naughty chair with for the Ireland game, but he's such a quality player. There's no way that they leave him out of the 23. So I think we are relatively settled. But for us, it's more about the Springbok 23, because you can drive yourself mad trying to pick what Rassie and Ninabo, especially Rassie, is going to do, or what he's going to tweet. Like whether their split's going to be 6-2, or they're going to go persist with this 5-3, which has seemed kind of odd for the last couple of weeks in terms of what they've been building for the last few years, to go back to a 5-3 bench, and almost dearly cost them in terms of some of their selections. Personally, I thought some of the selections have been a little bit strange from the South Africans. But what do you think in terms of what they do with Mane Lebok and Handré Pollard? That's a big question that we want answered. And then what is the look of the bomb squad? Is that traditional 6-2 bomb squad? So from a fan's point of view, I feel pretty confident as to what New Zealand's going to do. But in terms of what South Africa are going to bring to the table, there's so many permutations in terms of what they can do. But are you guys, I guess, in the dark as much as anybody, or what's your gut feel on what Rassie and Nina Bar are going to cook up for us?
Yeah, the general feel is that there's going to be a change in the halfbacks. So probably Faf de Klerk and Handré Pollard will start. And then the looks like there'll probably be a 6-2 bench. Agreed that 5-3 was interesting. But the one thing that is constant about the Springboks is we really don't know what's coming. I don't think anyone does. And also, like, we know that there will be a plan. I think that's probably the best part about it, is they could name Willemse, Pollard, and Lebok in the starting 15, and you'll know that there's a plan. And I think that's also one of the biggest mysteries, and one of the biggest things that you can't train another team against, is you don't know what's coming. So, interesting times. Just going back to, I just wanted to chat. I think one thing about the All Black Locks is you're in an incredibly great position by having Whitelock, Barrett, and Retallick as options. And they can interchange. There could be a time where you could start any combo of those two and bench the other. Like, it's very,
That's right,
very interesting, and also provides for some great options and real awesome and good in-game stuff. But the big thing for me, and the thing is, like, I'll be honest, is Dan Coles doesn't have a great reputation in South Africa. He's commonly known as the Grub. Your thoughts on him? I think Cody Taylor, he had a real big slump. I know Thala was calling for him to not even play NPC at one stage. I've always thought that he's excellent. He did have a bad patch, and then he's come back and he's really established himself as first choice. But Samisoni Takiaho was dominating during the time that Taylor was struggling. What is the reason for you bringing Dan Coles in? Is it just his experience, or just what he brings, his grubbiness, and maybe his width and his speed out wide? What?
I think there's a whole different number of things. He's kind of like our forwards version of Willie LaRue. Like, everybody needs a douche on their team, like everyone needs a player who's going to get under the skin of the other team a little bit and say those little niggly things. He's all mongrel. He's all heart. He's got a little bit of footwork. You can if he finds himself in a backline or in open and stuff, he knows exactly what to do. He's very good at playing open flowing rugby, and he's very, very rarely over his long career ever let the black jersey down. So he's got runs on the board for the All Blacks, and he's a real team man. He's somebody that they listen to as well. But like, he gives everyone crap, and he gets crap himself from people. And sometimes it's great if the South Africans, if we know that the South Africans find him obnoxious and irritating, chuck him out there. Everybody finds Willie de Roux obnoxious and irritating. That's why no one likes playing him. Like, it's one of those, it's those intangible things that are really hard to measure that players like that actually bring. That's why, and they make it entertaining for a lot of reasons. I know that Samisoni, I've been surprised a little bit by how underutilized Samisoni has been this year, but I almost throw Cody Taylor into the sort of same bracket as I do with Sam Cane. Both had pretty poor 2022s. But this year, like in terms of Super Rugby and in terms of what they've been doing in the black jersey, they've been playing the house down. And, and they also did have significant performances for the black in the past, for the All Blacks in the past. So they have those runs on the board too, and they do like to reward, experience within the All Blacks. And they have been performing very, very well. And I think it's just proven performance, real reliability. Our line-out has looked very, very strong throughout this tournament. Very few line-out woes or issues or anything like that. So it's a bit of a winning formula at the moment. And I do believe that, Dane Coles has been adding something, a bit of energy and a bit of grit to the situation when he actually comes on as well. But yeah, it's having Samisoni there in the wings. He's a very, very capable replacement, and hopefully he'll be a great All Black for many years to come.
Tony, what are your thoughts about that bench, especially if you put Dane Coles there? You have Sam Whitelock, you have Damien McKenzie. Those are three very experienced and obviously very talented players. I mean, even Anton Leonard-Brown, we saw his impact in the last few minutes of that Island game and the tackles he was making. There is, I don't know if it's questions, but I mean, the other three players that I haven't mentioned there, the two props in Fletcher Newell and Tamaiti Williams, I mean, they're very talented, and I'm sure they'll take the All Blacks forward for the next decade at least. But they're very young. And of course, they're going to be facing Oxen Chair, who looks like he's probably the best scrummager in the world right now. And then the whole Finn Christie versus Cam Roigard debate. How do you see that? And how do you see those three players and who gets picked there?
Yeah, I think just starting with the props, with having Tamaiti Williams and Fletcher Newell on the bench, when they have come on over this tournament, they've done well. And they are young, but, there is a bit of a mentality within New Zealand rugby, if you're good enough, you're old enough type of thing, and they have been performing well. I believe that the All Black scrum is the least penalised scrum in the whole tournament so far, which is pretty amazing. Considering we don't really consider the scrum really a pillar of our game, as opposed to, we know that you guys do. But they've been, they absolutely, if you look some of the scrums in the Argentina game and that Italy game that have some relatively good high class props in their team too, we've been demolishing a few scrums, and they've been just demolishing them late in the game with the likes of Fletcher Newell and with Tamaiti Williams. Tamaiti Williams is also just a massive body. The bloke, I think he's 140 kilos and stuff like that. Yeah, he's a big boy. So just getting a bit, and we've always kind of looked at like Intini and stuff from France with a little bit of envy and some of the massive forwards that you guys have had, and it's nice to have a real big body to come on the field for us and hopefully polish off the game. But my goodness gracious me, my nether regions start to sweat when I start to think about Oxen Che. Really, like, he's a terrifying man. Like, and just reflecting on what he did in that England game, I know he was on the field for 20 minutes, but in my entire life, I've never seen a more significant propping shift. That is the most significant in terms of what was at stake, what he managed to do for his team, what he managed to do for his nation, he kept you guys in that tournament by, just incredible scrummaging. Like whatever you think about scrummaging, that guy has nailed that skill set to such a high degree, and he's going to be a massive, massive challenge for our young props towards the end of that game. And you know, in terms of the way when I start to think about how this game could play out, what I'm really hoping for from a New Zealand, from an All Black fans perspective, is we get a real fast start, we blitz, we run the ball, we play All Black rugby, and we get a really decent lead. Because if we don't, if it's still, even like within a penalty or within a try or even 2 tries potentially with the last 20 to go, like it's not put away. We if we have an advantage, when you really need to make them make pay, and that's what the All Blacks are good at doing, that they can score 20 points in 10 minutes if they do have momentum. So if we can score points in bunches, that would be fantastic. Because we know there is a massive threat. The world's best scrummager in the world right now, Oxen Che, coming on, and he, it's going to be a massive challenge for our forwards. We'll see how they level up to it. Hopefully they do a little bit better than Sinclair. Sinclair, man, I don't know how that guy's feeling right now, but he'll be having nightmares about Oxen Che for many, many years to come. In terms of the debate around Roygaard or Finlay Christie, I think for me, like we were all a little bit surprised when it came to quarterfinal time that Roygaard wasn't in the 23, because he was playing so well and he's such a dynamic runner and he offers something really different. And in terms of when he could come on in a game, he's the sort of player you'd like to see us bring on if we were chasing a game. But I think what they must be doing in terms of their faith in Finlay Christie is he's a little bit more of a like for like replacement of Aaron Smith. He clears out rucks really quickly. He makes he's a very good decision maker. He does a lot less sniping in comparison to Roygaard, but he's got a great pass and he's got great decision making. He's got great vision, and those are all the qualities that Aaron Smith has. So I think it would be, they've really got a specific style of play that they want to play with, and as opposed to bringing on a player who's going to play a little bit more heads up and play looking to run more often, they just want to keep more of the same, to keep with that same particular strategy that they're wanting to play with. But that's just my opinion. Or maybe they just think Finlay's a better player, which is, it's making a few people scratch their heads. It's always interesting in terms of what you wouldn't want your opponents to be doing. Are you quite happy with having Finlay Christie on the bench as opposed to Roygaard?
I am. I would prefer to have Christie on. So it's funny, Jared's not on here, but him and I had a little bit of banter when Finlay Christie when I kept saying that he's going to get a call up, he's got to play, and he had a bit of a shitty Super Rugby season for the Blues. But I'm a big fan of Finlay Christie. I will say one thing. I thought this World Cup was too soon for Cam Roygaard, and I was proven horribly wrong. I for free would rather have Finlay Christie as a Springbok supporter. I would rather have Finlay Christie on the bench than Cam Roygaard. There's stuff about Cam Roygaard that scares me, as not as an All Black supporter. Like, he's excellent, but there's obviously something that the powers that be have picked up that they're not happy with, or maybe it's the fact that Moanga or Barrett or McKenzie is not getting the ball when or where they want it. Maybe it's something as simple as that. The All Blacks rely heavily on everything running off 10. To be fair, I think only the French are really focused on their 9 dominating everything. So maybe it's something small like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I always think it's quite an interesting question to ask, like, who wouldn't the opposition like to see? And when I think of that South African team, I know the players that I wouldn't want to see that are in your team at the moment. I'm a huge fan of Kane Moody. If he was in the 23 for you guys somewhere, that would keep me up at night. And also Lucanio Arms technically in the squad right now, but we haven't seen him play. That would be a massive, massive call if they managed to pull him into the 23. Is there any chance that you guys can see that, one of those two blokes or both of those blokes find a way, or is the midfield pretty much sewn up as it is, and we don't really have room for them on the bench?
I think Moody's probably the closest, but not in the midfield. I wouldn't start
on
him.
the wing.
I wouldn't start him in the midfield. There's no ways he's going in just purely on defense.
He looked pretty good in that Twickenham test in the midfield. He looked like every inch of a centre.
Not on defense though. Yeah, you see, that's the thing
wow.
though. For me, like I'm maybe a little bit boring, but I definitely, and 13 is that defensive general, so it's got to be done there. So he attacks really well at 13. He's like Rico, like he's a brilliant attacking 13, but there's a lot else in the 13 that he needs to fix, where Rico's taken 3-4 years to really get that right, and he's only really come good now. So I think Moody's the only time he's got a shot, he's going to have to start ahead of Kirtley Arnsell on the right wing. I don't see him starting anywhere else unless he comes in on the bench.
Yeah.
With regards to Lukanya, the thing that's probably stopping him from starting right now is his lack of game time. When he came back for the Springboks, he wasn't his usual self, very good, but not his usual self. And then he picked up that injury. He didn't get any game time for the Sharks while he was recovering, where Andre Pollard got 30 minutes or something like that. So I think that's probably the thing that's holding him back is test match rugby. You can do all the prep you want, but test match rugby, you only learn and you get up to speed in a test match. And are we willing to take that chance? I don't know. So, but the biggest problems for Moody and right now are the fact that the Springboks are 6'2", 7'1" heavy. So he gets a look in maybe if we go 5-3, but I really don't think we go 5-3 for this game.
No, I don't see you doing it. Yeah, I think 6-2 would be the way to go for you guys. Yeah. What do you guys think? Oh no, sorry, carry on.
No. Actually, go on, please. Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask a relatively broad sort of question in terms of where do you guys see the weaknesses in the All Blacks in terms of where you guys can attack them, win the game, essentially?
Yeah, I think both teams have their templates from either the July test in Mount Smart or the August test in Twickenham. I mean, I think at least how I see us attacking the All Blacks is, a lot of defensive pressure, get the high rush defense or like the sort of almost like the ultra rush defense going, and to give them as little space as possible and to sort of choke them out of any like line breaks, and then just beat them up front. So have to win the gain line battle, have to win the set piece, have to get penalties and sort of get those piggybacking penalties as well, and try to force the All Blacks into those cynical fouls and errors, and then get someone like Scott Barrett in the sin bin would help a ton. And then
jeez, please God, no.
And then just trying to capitalize on those things as well. It's not too dissimilar to I think how we approach the French game. I think there has to be an element of, yes, the Springboks are going to try to assert themselves up front and dominate physically, but you have to also be able to take the opportunities when they come and score the tries when they do come. So that's what we did. That's what the Boks did really well in the quarterfinal against France, and that's what they did really well in the game in Twickenham. So if there is like a mistake from from like a kick receipt or something like that, or if there is some sort of like turnover that happens in counterattack, we have to score points, because we know that New Zealand, if you give them 4 or 5 chances in a game, they'll likely score from 2-3 of them at least. So Jacques Nienaber has already said that it'll probably take 35 points to beat the All Blacks on Saturday. So however you want to calculate that probably means we need to score probably at the very least 3 tries, which is obviously not necessarily the most finals rugby type of template ever as well. So I think those are sort of the main things. Shaun, anything that I'm missing?
No, I think you got a good shot. For me, I'm going to push the boat out a little bit more. The big thing. So we've shown that we've shown our foundation of our defense, but in 2 or 3 different ways. If you look at how we defended against Scotland, we were super aggressive. And then a little later in the tournament, we've kind of changed that up a little bit, not as aggressive. Now, that could be just how the Springboks were on the day. But I believe, and I mentioned it a couple months ago, that I thought we would see a different type, different defensive, attacking defensive sets in like two or three different ones in the game, like change it up, like be hyper aggressive or kind of be a little bit on the back foot and then push hard. And the other thing for me is we've got to, it's weird saying this, but we've got to All Black the All Blacks. Like, we need to, when we get turnover ball, we need to do what we did against France. Like, we need to make them work and work hard for us and score 5-7 points, attack at scrum time. If we, like that whole like rugby thing, like you've got to paint the right picture. If we dominate scrums early, it's really hard against the All Blacks in the mood that they're in, and also because of the All Blacks, who they are. Just the same as the All Blacks aren't going to be able to dominate us. But I think if its side can dominate that scrum time, get some points pushed to the corner. And the other thing is the Springboks are, I'm not happy with our maul attack. And we are going to have to fine tune it. We've missed that. The English got all over us. They spoiled us, but through this whole year, we haven't had that maul attack like we used to. It's not been as tight. It hasn't been reaping the rewards that we want. So all our stuff is based on our attack, except for that defensive change up. Like, we're going to be hyper aggressive until they start kicking, and then maybe be a little bit back footish and then push forward. I think that's kind of got to change things up. That's got to be the plan, something different.
Yeah, like I think, and you guys do all those things particularly well. But it's interesting what you say about the maul. You're right; it didn't seem to have that same potency against the English. Had a really great strategy in terms of almost shunting it sideways and disabling it from going anywhere. But yeah, for us, in terms of when we ever think about playing the Springboks, it's not about dominating the forward battle. It's about parity. We always sort of back ourselves in terms of, like, if we can just match them, if we can match your physicality, if we can get good set piece, not have our set piece spoiled, we back our natural skills and our flair to be able to create. And there has to be, that's pretty broad in terms of a term, just, skills and flair and create. But, I'm sure the likes of Schmidt have, hyper analyzed the Springboks in terms of where potential weaknesses. For me, the one area that I'm really interested to attack is that sort of number 10 channel, just to seeing, whether Mounty Labok's defense has improved at all, or what Handré Pollard's defense, with if there's any rust around there. With, we've seen Will Jordan being pretty electric on that inside, and if we are able to make some gains in there, if you guys hyper commit on the inside, there'll be space on the outside for the likes of, Mark Thaler and whatnot. So there's a lot of threats on that side. So it's that same. It's like Taylor's oldest time, really. If you guys just destroy us up front, you guys win. If we get parity up front, hopefully, we can call it. But in terms of what happened in Twickenham, like, I know we've had two pretty different results of what happened in Mount Smart and what happened at Twickenham. I wasn't able to actually watch that game live. I was actually at my daughter's football game, and then one of my favorite South African people actually ruined the result for me, walking past him with a phone going, "New Zealand will be in mourning today," and then he stopped and he was like, "No, not mourning like the mourning because they lost, because they're sad." And I was like, thanks, I really appreciate that. But then, and then I remember looking at the result, going, "Gee, we got smashed." But then actually watching the game and realizing, we didn't have Retallick, we didn't have Rizal, we lost our best prop, in the first 10 minutes, and then we got a red card. I was like, wow, with the likes of Josh Lord and stuff out there, we were slim pickings for who we actually had out there. It wasn't. I at the end of it, I didn't take too much from that result in terms of how dominant you guys were, because it was such a different pack from what you guys will be facing this week. Knock on wood that we don't have any massive injuries in that time, and we don't get dog roll sent to the bench, sent off the field, which is a big if, really.
Tony, let's talk about some of the individual or sort of like positional matchups that we can look forward to seeing on Saturday. Like, where does your mind where does your mind go to first as to things that the two like players like you're excited to see match up against each other on Saturday?
I'm actually really looking forward to the battle between Mo'unga and Pollard. I think Pollard is just showing his class from how he's been able to come on. And then we know we've talked a lot about his kicking, his goal kicking and his absolute ice that runs in his veins to be able to kick those a couple of massive long range goals that have kept you guys in the tournament, which is just remarkable temperament. But I think he hasn't really missed a beat in terms of his in-game play since he's been back, which is pretty remarkable from coming back from an injury. But I think Mwanga is in high class form. His just ability to run with the ball in two hands and have so many attacking threats around him. He has an innate sense to understand when the gap is actually open for him. So, seeing who's going to get the better of who there is going to be massive. I think the aerial battle between, whoever you guys have on the wings, which is likely to be Aronsa and Colby, potentially, I guess, versus Will Jordan, and Barrett at the back, and also and Talia. If you guys are able to make all those balls contestable and smack them back, similar to how you guys did it was the Nombella. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. The first test in South Africa last year, where you guys just wrecked us with the high ball. I think that would be a great strategy for you guys. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how the outside backs go. And also, I'm just really, in terms of like pack on pack, like there's so much been spoken about the quality of the Springbok pack, and there is quality across the board. But I've been really impressed with how the likes of Lomax and Cody Taylor have been going, and also when Scooter's actually on the field, and in terms of their physicality over the ball and how they're going to be. And I think Jace Ryan will have them really up for the battle for them. Mm-hmm. I think there's been massive improvements in our forward pack since Jace Ryan's come on. So across the park, then you look at the back rows, like with Artie, Kane, and Frizzell, who's just been massive for us. Like we really feel him when he's not out there for us, versus Khaleesi Vermeulen and Steph Tutoit. It's just mouth-watering battles all over the park, everywhere you look. It's hard to really pinpoint, one or two in particular, because every aspect of the field we're looking at some of the world's best players, coming up playing for the greatest prize. It just doesn't get any better. It's really, really exciting stuff. I'm starting to tremble, boys. I'm starting to tremble.
No, that you've set it up quite well there, Tony. Shaun, any other matchups that you want to pick up on?
Oh, everything is the pack, the backs, the bench, the pre-game banter, the squad announcements in game. It all matters. And like you look at individuals. There'll be certain individuals better than other individuals, but then you look at it as a whole, and they all kind of look even. We really are in for a cracking game. It's going to be flipping outstanding. Mark Tillier up against Springboks. Oof, all good, eh?
Oh, yeah, mate. Pretty mouth-watering stuff. It just you'd almost want to be a neutral so you could save yourself the blood pressure sort of rising through the roof, basically.
No, look, I think us as South Africans could do with a very, like I think what happened in Twickenham, like a pretty, like a what do you call it, processionary win, where we get, where things are pretty much decided after 40 or 50 minutes. That would be fantastic. But it's very unlikely that happens.
Mate. Yeah, I think we can both dream. It'd be amazing for the All Blacks to have mate, that 57-0 scoreline sounds pretty good about now. But I think that it's a different team, it's just some of these guys at the peak of their powers, and some of the greatest players we've seen play for both nations on the way out. Like if you think about the amount of collisions like the likes of Sam Whitelock and Vermeulen would have had over their careers, and they'll be doing that again this weekend. We're going to see those two old brutes just smashing up against each other once more, just for all the marbles. It's going to be massive. Like there's we had a bit of a slow start to this World Cup, but the pressure, not the pressure, but the excitement in the nation right now is really, really tangible. People want to talk rugby. People who aren't even rugby fans are starting to, plan where they're going to be on Sunday morning. It's about as big as it gets, really. It is as big as it gets.
Okay, Tony, I think to sort of end off on this, we've talked about matchups, we've talked about players. I think maybe the last question I want to ask you is, who's the player that needs to have almost like a man of the match performance in order for the All Blacks to win on Saturday?
Man of the match performance. Geez. I was thinking Sam Cane. In terms of if we walk away talking about that was the best performance of his career and he led like a true All Black captain, then I think we win the game. Just that's the sort of rhetoric that comes out after sort of All Black wins sometimes. But then I was sort of momentarily thinking, and it's a strange thing to say from a man on the bench, if we were singing the praises of Tamati, well, is Tamati Williams going to be the guy who's matching up against Oxen Shea when they come off the bench, or is it going to be Fletcher Newell?
Probably Newell, I guess.
Fletcher.
Yeah, if we're talking about Fletcher Newell at the end of the game, or how well he played and how he was able to nullify the threats of Oxen Shea, that would be a great story. I'd be loving to hear that too. So yeah, that's a weird one out of the box. Fletcher Newell, he's going to have the game of his life. Go Fletcher.
That is brilliant. That's brilliant. I tell you, for me, sorry, Thala, to jump in, but I was just having a look now and thinking, if I had to think of a player that needs to have a man of the match performance for the All Blacks to win, it would probably be Beauden Barrett for me, because fielding the high balls, but also the way he attacks with those kicks. I don't know how he recovers all those kicks and what he does, but I'm seeing one of those. Like if he has a masterclass performance, he's basically diffusing. As Dalton Papali'i said, the forwards they call themselves easy company because they want to diffuse the bombs. But I think if he diffuses all those kick bombs and then he attacks the way we know he can attack, that's going to be hectic.
Yeah. And he's a World Cup winner already. We did it in 2015 when he came off the bench and scored that, massive try at the end of the game. But I think this is by far and away the biggest game of his career. It's still unsettled in terms of where he's going to be in the future, but we know he's a quality player. But I think that's one of the things that we were a little bit concerned about from what we saw in it was hard to find too many faults in the Argentinian game. The intensity was off a little bit, obviously. But the thing that was worrying me was we weren't exiting very well, especially towards in that first 15 minutes. That we just seemed to be lacking, even with Mo'unga, Barrett, and I don't even think Geordie Barrett was having his best, kicking display in terms of really getting distance on the ball. But we know with the South Africans that when you are in the 22, when you do get a turnover, you need to exit really, really well. You need to get up into that halfway mark if you possibly can. And that's what Dan Carter used to do for us so reliably. He'd always just have this big old boot that would get us out. Whereas watching those three this weekend, our main kickers, they were just scrambling it out beyond the 22 and we stayed under pressure. So if we can, exit properly and do that, that's a fundamental task. If you don't exit well against South Africa, they'll just keep you under the pump. So I think that's going to be massive too. So Beauden Barrett is a good shout.
Yeah, I think let's end it there and let's look forward to an absolutely epic test match that's going to be happening on Friday. Also, the last test match for some big stalwarts of this particular rivalry, the likes of Dwayne Vermeulen, Beauden Barrett, probably Sam Whitelock, Brodie Retallick, and Willie Leroux will probably play their last match against each other, or at least their last match in their careers as well. So this will be box office stuff, and I'm sure it'll be a classic final that'll definitely rival 1995. And at least from the South African side, we hope that the result stays the same so we can make another movie.
I prefer it to be more like 96 in Pretoria where we won our first series, to be honest. The end of it, Invictus has a real horrible ending. It was a tough watch to watch that again.
That's why I didn't win the Oscars. The New Zealand votes didn't come through.
The New Zealand vote was like, damn you, Clint Eastwood. Worst movie ever. What an event. Hey, thank you, boys, for having me on. It was awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. We were just about to say that. Yeah, thanks for your awesome insight and expert analysis. Emphasis on expert.
I think when when I hear you say expert analysis, it does make me sort of vomit in my mouth. Yeah.
Well, at
It's
least
not
I know.
good.
At least I know how I'm gonna sort the social out for this expert analysis.
Yeah, I'm gonna write that on my LinkedIn. Expert analysis.
You have to now. It's gonna go on social
Analyze.
media. Yeah,
Yeah, fantastic. It's on record, everybody. Expert. Boom.
love it.
Thanks so much. And yeah, thanks so much
Cheers,
for
Tony.
an awesome episode of Rugby Bits podcast. And yeah, we are just previewing this big game that's happening on Saturday. We're gonna have a lot of podcasts coming to you for the rest of the week as well. So enjoy. Please follow us on our podcast platforms. Please follow us on our social media channels as well. And yeah, also give Tony and Distracted Sports a follow as well while you're at it. And yeah, let's keep on celebrating this great game of rugby. Okay, bye-bye.